לגמרי. הדלאי למה אמר עכשיו, הוא תמיד אומר את זה, אבל הוא חזר על זה שוב, שאנחנו כל כך תלויים אחד בשני, שבסיטואציה הנוכחית כל כך בולט החוסר הבנה, הבורות בעניין, לא?
כן, כן, ודבר כמובן כל אחד מאיתנו לא יכול לדעת איך היא הייתה מגיבה, אבל אני תמיד, נגיד, מתפלא מיכולותיו, מאיך בן אדם אחד יכול לעשות דברים בעוצמות כאלה. איך זה עובד שאדם אחד יש לו אוגר כוח כזה, שזה יהיה כלכלי, שזה יהיה פוליטי, זה שניהם ביחד. ועושים את הדברים המשוגעים שהוא מחליט לעשות.
אני לוסנג איתנו.
Good evening, Annie.
Good evening.
Good evening, Annie Losang.
Good evening.
Hi. How are you, everybody?
Thank you.
You're here in Israel, so it's great.
Huh?
You are here in Israel.
I am in Israel, yeah. Really, I have arrived in your holy land.
Annie Losang, if I may, 1 minute, just a message in regards to Dana, 1 minute of your time in Hebrew.
Yeah, if you want, but I'm sure everybody knows, but yeah, I know you have to.
Yes, you know, just a little reminder, ברוכים הבאים למפגש הדרמה של ידידי הדרמה עם אני לוסנג המקסימה. כל הפעילויות נעשות בהתנדבות, ועוד עכשיו כל מיני פעילויות כיפיות עומדות לפנינו. אז נשמח לכל דנה, לאני לוסנג, לידידי הדרמה. זהו, בקצרה. תודה רבה. Thank you, Anil.
Absolutely no problem. So did you have an interesting 2 weeks looking at your subtle arrogance? Yes? No? Did you notice something or not? And were you able to apply antidote or not? Or did it just, evade you? And because arrogance is something that is really subtle, and it's really difficult to see what is healthy self-confidence and what is arrogance. Or what do you think? Is it easy to detect? Is it easy to see?
Not always.
Not always.
Not always. By that I mean that, of course, the arrogance that one can feel when, the obvious things, that the way one talks and has this feeling of, so-called superiority or whatsoever. But there's something else, I think, that there is, one would maybe call built-in arrogance in the status one has, in the social status that one has. So, and one may not feel it, but for the person in front of you, just by the very fact that you belong to a certain status, can make the other feel that you are arrogant, because you come with this status and what it means, with the way you talk, with the way you walk, with the way you dress. And this can be perceived, and in Israel, it's very, very common as arrogant. because of, social problems, etc. And you may think that the other has a wrong definition of arrogance, but this is what he or she feels.
How do you know what the other feels or what the other thinks? I mean, isn't that a projection of just you also?
That's right. That's right. But there's a lot of talking about these kind of things in Israeli society.
Okay. Well, yeah. But you see, when you say, I don't feel arrogant, it doesn't mean that then we are not arrogant, because last time we talked about subtle arrogance, not this, this very excited thing, I'm so great, but more like it's so difficult to detect. And this is where, again, mindfulness is absolutely necessary for you to see it. And it's because it's one of the biggest hindrances actually for the spiritual path. And because it's neglected very, very often, because we don't see it as a problem. Anger we see as a problem, desire we see as a problem. Arrogance, as we looked at this text by Tilman Lodrup, feels good. This is the problem. Attachment, desire, anger. And then we also looked at, from the Tibetan point of view, that also feeling low, like having low self-confidence, that's also a form of arrogance. It's like every time when we feel separate from somebody else, every time we feel an I, every time we feel, this very solid, inherently existing I, this is then where it comes from, to compare, I'm better than others or bad or worse, or this and that. And it comes in so quickly. And we have to catch it, because otherwise we just, we just create more stronger habits and so on. But we were at verse 49. So then, he's talking a lot about how to develop self-confidence from now on, and kind of pushing himself. But first, before we start, maybe let's do just some, again, awareness meditation, because that is so important, that we develop a habit on the cushion to, in a way, same way as you drive your car. You don't have to think about you driving your car anymore, but still concentrated, a little bit like that. Or maybe good to define the word mindfulness. You know what mindfulness means? Like if somebody says, mindfulness, what do you mean? And when you look at the Tibetan tradition, when they talk about mindfulness, what do they mean? Give it a try. If I wouldn't have heard about mindfulness and I come to you and say, what is mindfulness? How would you explain it?
Breathe in.
Sorry?
First of all, breathe in, breathe out, and just be in that, be in the moment, whatever the moment is.
Okay.
Accept it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Be in the mode of perception, openness, perception of what is happening outside and perception of what is happening inside.
Anybody else? I'm talking from the Tibetan point. When they talk about shaman. But what you said is right. That's kind of the common definition of mindfulness. Elisheva, you opened your microphone.
Maybe kind of emptiness or no thinking, no action, no.
Oh, no. This I really have to say no.
Okay.
Because it's the thinking is not the problem, that we get lost in the thinking. That is. So don't think. or whatever is about not thinking. It's more what Ariella and Edouard was saying, you know, being in the present, noticing what's going on.
It is not about awareness about what you are thinking and active.
Huh?
Yeah, that's all.
I ask if it's not awareness about what you are thinking and active.
Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness.
Actually, when they talk about mindfulness, there's two factors. Yeah, right. One is called memory. To remember. To remember what? Dora, you need to open your microphone.
Yeah, the object of the meditation. The object.
Yeah, right. So that is what, you know, to really know, okay, what am I doing here? And to remember that this is what I'm doing, but not remembering intellectually. This has to become a habit. Like the same way, you know, when there is attachment involved, if you, you know, you get out of the house and you want to go to the shop, okay? So you don't need to, you know, you remember that you want to go to the shop. You don't need to say in your mind constantly, I want to go to the shop, I want to go to the shop, I want to go to the shop. This memory is so strong that you don't need to intellectually repeat it, and that makes you go to the shop. Now, remembering your object of mindfulness makes you keep your object and not get left and right, right? Then there is another factor which is called introspection, which is checking, which is looking whether you are on your object of mindfulness. Now, what you said with mindfulness, you know, being inside, outside, everywhere, if that's what you call mindfulness, then you have to be really, really good at it to be able to notice everything without getting lost. Yeah, so it's like, this is why sometimes the word mindfulness, when we talk like in the Western perspective, is a bit wishy-washy, that we don't really know, you know, what it is. Because what you're describing with inside, outside, knowing what's going on, man, this is incredibly difficult. You know, not to get distracted and not to get lost in our thoughts. This one would call maybe choiceless mindfulness, choiceless awareness, right? Because Dalit was using the word. But when we talk about shamatha, when we talk about quieting the mind so that it really sees clearly, then you have an object of meditation. And at the beginning, definitely, it's much better. This is what Ariella said. You take your breath as your object of meditation, and you forget about the other things. You don't follow them unless until you train the mind to be naturally focused the same way that you're focused when you want to go to the shop. And maybe a friend comes, you know, and distracts you from going to the shop or stops you. But in the back of your mind, you still know that you have to go to the shop without having to think about having to go to the shop. You understand what I mean a little bit?
So how do we do that? I mean, we already, as you say, have in back of our minds to go to the shop. So I'm asking, how do I help train myself to have it back of my mind?
By knowing what your object of mindfulness is. And in your case, when you say breathing in, breathing out, it's the breath. It's not left and right and this and that and, you know, all the things. You see what I mean? Because, of course, you know, this sounds wonderful, what Edouard said, being totally aware of what's going in and out and this and that. But for that, the mind needs to be really calm to be able to be aware of what's going on with a clear mind. Yeah, otherwise it's kind of, you know, trying to count the water drops in a waterfall or something like that. So how do you do that? By training with an object of shamatha, with an object of concentration or an object of meditation. And then you need to remember that object of meditation. Now, but mindfulness is not only that. Mindfulness is also the memory, what do I want to be? Or, you know, why am I doing this? So if you do, you know, as Elisheva was saying, if you practice meditation because you want to stop thinking, well, you can take a sleeping pill and then you stop. You know, we practice meditation in order to know directly and clearly what? The first thing, what brings suffering and what brings happiness? What kind of behavior will bring suffering and what kind of behavior will bring happiness? Not in the short term, but in long term. And what we definitely need to remember with this text that we are studying is bodhicitta. I need to attain full awakening in order to benefit all sentient beings. So that we don't get distracted by other things that are short term, yeah, maybe very pleasant and very nice, but long term, it takes us actually away from becoming enlightened. Or, you know, being mindful of this is, I think, what was it? Dalit was saying, yeah, being mindful, what is the action of the body? What is the action of the speech? What is the action of the mind? Right? Is it ethical or is it not ethical? It's all about this. So when you hear this, and then you think, oh man, I thought meditation was to calm me down. Now I have to look at this and at this and at this and at this. Like, I'm going to be more stressed out, isn't it? Sometimes you could feel like this. Or not? Okay. So what do you want to do with your awareness meditation? I prefer awareness than mindfulness. So you hold your object of meditation as the main focus. Of course, other things come, but you don't pay attention to them. Same way, you know, you're in the car, and you you need to focus on the road. But what we're doing, there was this very nice talk at one point by, I can't remember his name, he's quite a very funny Hindi kind of guru. And so he was talking about, you know, meditation is like learning how to drive the car. So, you know, you learn and you have to focus on the road. Your teacher tells you focus on the road, focus on the road, focus on the road. But you have to tell yourself, focus on the object whenever the mind goes away. So he was saying, and the student, he learned quite well to focus on the road, but then the rain started, you know, the thoughts are coming. The rain started, and then he had to turn on the, how do you call these in English? The screen wipers. So how do you call them?
Wipers. Screen wipers, just as you said.
He had to turn on the screen wipers, but because he was not used to it, he was following the screen wipers. So he's going zoom, 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 and he was getting really frightened. And the teacher next to him said, but focus on the road, focus on the road. You don't need to focus on these things, even they go in front of your nose. Does that make sense a little bit? You know, all the thoughts and all the other things that come, they're there, but you don't pay attention to them, because if you pay attention to them, then it takes your awareness away from your object of meditation. And your object of meditation, which can be the breath, it can be the image of a Buddha. I think these are the two things that are the easiest to do, or like your body, you know, for example, the posture of your body. The body is sitting. That can be an object of meditation. You know, this is one of the easiest things to find. Yeah. And then the mind learns to be stable on a gross object, like the body posture. And then afterwards, when you can do that, then you move to the next object of mindfulness, which is your feeling, your pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. When you're stable on this, then you move on to the next, which is the state of your mind. But you're not doing all at the same time, especially if you're not very concentrated. You know, then it's like, you know, being on the wipers instead of being focusing on the road. And then when you have this, then you can go on to the phenomena. These are what are called the foreclosed objects of mindfulness. Right? And by watching this, by being with these foreclosed objects of mindfulness, you understand the Four Noble Truths quite quickly. Because if you focus on your body, just, not to make any judgment and not to manipulate anything, just to be with the body. Body is sitting. All of a sudden, pain is coming, right? So you understand the first noble truth. I need to move all the time in order to be comfortable. Yeah. Then you feel that you don't like the pain. So, you kind of, your object of mindfulness is your sensations. I prefer to say sensations than feeling. Sensations, and we feel that we are pushing them away. We're getting tense around them. So we understand the causes because we don't want this pain. Yeah? So that's the second noble truth. It's the origin of suffering. Is like our negative emotions are being too focused on using kind of unhelpful emotions to help the situations. And now you see the state of your mind, which is very unhappy or full of aversion when there is pain. So you understand the kind of the third noble truth. Sometimes when you feel absence of negative emotions, or when there's just acceptance, you understand cessations. And then with the fourth object of mindfulness, which is phenomena, this is like the four noble truths, the 5 contaminated aggregates, the 12 links, and all this. This comprises the Buddha's teaching. Does it make sense or not so much? Maybe if you heard it for the first time, you have to hear it a few more. But you see, it's not much point just to wish and hope for a calm mind when your object is too subtle and it keeps slipping away and you get lost in thought. Because so many people, they complain, oh, my meditation is not going well, I'm not focused and all this, and I'm very distracted. It could well be that your object of mindfulness is either too much, like, everything, you want to be mindful of everything, or it is too difficult to hold because it's not close enough. So this is for you to check, it's for you to check where am I standing, and you can change. Yeah, when you feel that, I remember the other day, by the way, Netta is not here because I think she has something else. So when Netta said, oh, I couldn't focus, so I just stopped the meditation. It's okay, to stop, but it's like, if we only sit when the mind is already calm, then we're not really learning how to deal with agitated mind. It's good to, when you sit and you feel that you're agitated, then you just sit with it, and you can take your agitation as your focal object. How does it feel? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it pushing? Is it pulling? Okay. So it's good if you feel that you're not so focused. It's really good to make your object of meditation really, really simple, and then take this, the mindfulness as a memory. This is what I want to do. Now we do 10 minutes for the next 10 minutes. And then you have another mental factor, which looks, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Or did I go off on thoughts or on other things? Or did I get bored? So I start to recite mantras, or I start to visualize Tara or whatever. Yeah, shall we try? Would you like to try your body posture? Because I tell you, it's really helpful, especially in the evening when you're already tired and it's difficult to hold the subtle. You want to try that one? Well, I mean, I don't want to force you to do anything. You can do whatever you want. And then feel, the body itself is such a good object for the mind to calm down, especially when you're carried away by panic, loneliness, depression, fear, anger or whatever. Always come back to the body. Body is always in the present. And this is what, Edouard was saying it, and Ayala was saying, it's about the present, what is going on in the present. But in order to see clearly, the mind needs to be calm. So in order for the mind to be calm and clear, it needs to be stable. So it needs to be able to stay with the object. And that we have to train, because we're multifunctional people, and we learn more and more to jump from one object to the other. And it seems almost it's a disability if you cannot not hold many objects at the same time. Okay? So we try that. I mean, it's just a suggestion. You try your body posture. Body is sitting. Okay? How is it sitting? So now you make yourself comfortable, but not too comfortable, so that you can sit with a straight back. And then you check, and you check without moving. You know, sometimes when I say, now you look for tensions, people are already moving. First you have to look, and then very often you can release the tensions just by knowing that there are tensions. And with time, we can do that with the mind. Just knowing that we're angry, the anger will relax itself. It will fizzle out. So you decide, you know, so that you kind of, you feed it to your memory. What is my object of meditation? So it can be the body posture. So then if you do that, so I do as if you are doing that. You experience the body is sitting. You know it directly without any confusion. You try to notice how that makes you feel without getting attached to it, without being averted. And when that awareness of the body is sitting, it's going away, just bring it back. The same way, like it was in the first moment when I say, please have the awareness or the experience that the body is sitting. And we do that for 10 minutes. So you'll be moving in and out and in and out, in and out. Absolutely normal. The first step of shamatha meditation is, like they say, like throwing a rubber ball against a wall. It immediately comes bouncing back. It doesn't matter. You notice and you bring back the awareness. But the thoughts will be there, that doesn't matter, but your main focus is on the body sitting. And of course, if that's, if you're not training that often, the thoughts are much stronger than the awareness. Doesn't matter because we're just training. But you have to be quite clear what you want. Like going to the shop, you get distracted again and again and again, but you still go into the direction of the shop. You haven't forgotten that you want to go to the shop. You haven't forgotten that it's it. It's okay to use words. Body is sitting, but make sure you're with the experience of the body sitting, not just with the word. Nothing else is important. You don't need to figure out any problem. Need to kind of make any plans. You don't need to regret anything that happened. Relax into that awareness. This is very simple. All I have to do is to be aware that the body is sitting. It is not easy, it's simple. Then what goes with the body posture, of course, is to check whether the body is relaxed. With a straight back. But sitting totally free. Only the spine that is holding. Everything else is totally relaxed. So try to find these tensions. And you see that when you notice them, these muscles relax. You don't even need to move. Sitting on the ground, there can be buttocks that you are pulling together because you think the spine needs more strength. Shoulders that you're pulling up. It can be your chest that is not. Hands that are far too heavy in your lap or on the table. And especially be the small tensions in the cheeks, mouth, jaws that we're kind of clenching. And behind your eyes. again, with the body posture, body is sitting. So I don't know if you hear it, but right next door there's barking. I can feel the mind running away from the awareness that the body is sitting, imagining, having the image of the dog, making a story about it, remembering the dogs I know, remember the dog that died yesterday, and so on. This is what is happening all the time. One thought leading to the other, if we're not aware of it. It's almost as if physically the mind kind of moves to the dog or whatever else is happening. It can be just thoughts, memories. It can be actually sounds going on around. And that's not the problem. There's not a problem that there's sound. The main thing is that we notice this and come back to the body. Then when the mind is calmed a bit, then if it has calmed down, if it hasn't calmed down, it's fine. Then we take another mindfulness, the mindfulness of, or the memory, hey, what is my life all about? Or why am I doing this? Maybe if it's those who have been really studying the text since the beginning, remember the 4th and the 5th chapter, which is about conscientiousness and mindfulness. That he again and again and again talks about behavior and states of mind. To himself about recognizing the negative states of mind and to nurture the positive states. Now, maybe in your own mind, try to make a list. What is negative state? Why is it called negative? Sometimes you can also call it unwholesome, non-virtuous. We never call it good or bad. Sometimes we call it destructive. What are these states of mind? What are they destroying? Positive mind states, what are they building up? Why are they called constructive? See here in this text of the Bodhisattva, 4th and 5th chapter, the mindfulness is check whether he's on the path to full awakening or whether he's moving away from it. It's not just about, I breathe in, I breathe out, I breathe in, I breathe out. It's about, is my mind state right way? Is my motivation in the right way? That it will lead me where I want to get. And you need to know where you want to go with your prayer. You check. You decide. Oh, here they go. You're still in deep samadhi. You're back? You know, it's when I used to do that in the House of Religions with the children, because I imply that everybody knows when they hear the sound, everybody knows the meditation either starts or ends. But of course, the kids didn't know, so they just kept sitting. Because of course, I only sat with them 2 minutes, right? And we always did relaxing meditation and feeling good about themselves. So they felt this so pleasant that they would not, it's a little bit like you now, they would just keep sitting. So how was that? Did you find it easy or difficult or?
For me, it was peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
You are talking. It's not the same like I'm doing it myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You see, when I was still in Bern, and then we also had, like every Tuesday, we had either meditation or Bodhisattva, but also with the Bodhisattva, we would just meditate like half an hour, started discussion. But because it was always the same people, so I didn't say anything anymore, because you need to learn to do this by yourself. Because otherwise, of course, a guided meditation is very pleasant, you know, because it automatically brings you back when you hear the voice of whoever leads it. But then the muscle of vigilance, you know, or introspection is not going to develop, because you don't have to check. So this is why it's okay to be led in meditation, maybe at the beginning of your practice, but then you need to do this. You need to learn to do this by yourself. But it's good to learn this to do by yourself in a group, because alone, you know, you get fed up, you get up, you kind of look at your telephone, or you make a cup of tea, or you start to use a phone, or whatever. And with the group is so important. Of course, you know, maybe the Zoom not so much. So we kind of lost the habit a bit to be in a group. Out of respect for the group, you keep sitting. You know, you're not going to get up just because when you feel like it. And then you develop the habit of keeping sitting, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you're agitated, even if you're falling asleep. You just keep sitting. And all of a sudden you have the habit. Meditation is, you know, awareness is it's just a habit that we have to train and we have to develop. And then it comes effort. And of course, when there's a lot of interest involved, like going to the shop, you know, if you know exactly you want to go to the shop, because why? Because there's a reason you want to go to the shop. You know, if you just feel bored on a Friday and work, maybe you're not young enough, you're not young enough anymore to be like it. But maybe, you know, sometimes young people, they decide they want to go shopping, but they don't really have anything to buy. They just go like window shopping. They just go and look and see what it is. Then the smallest distraction, then they're not going to the shop anymore. But if you have a reason to go to the shop, you still go to the shop, even though maybe a friend says, let's go and have a cup of coffee. Maybe you go and have the cup of coffee, but you still come, you know, you go to the shop because there's a reason. And so for your meditation also, there should be a reason. And if it's just having a peaceful mind, I tell you, that reason is not strong enough to keep it up. But the reason to liberate yourself from being under the control of unhelpful emotions, that is a meaningful reason. Then on top of it, you put on top of it, because I want to be of benefit to others. You know, not now. Now, how can we be of benefit to others? Maybe a little bit. But we want to be of benefit to others the same way as our gurus are of benefit to us, because they inspire us to practice and to continue with the practice. Why? Because they're Buddha. You know, it has to be a special person who makes us do these crazy things. Okay? So that's what you want to become. You want to be able to guide people out of samsara, to inspire them to be ethical, not because you say, but in a way so that they understand, hey man, it is good to be ethical. Not because the Buddha says, not because I will get into prison, but because I will encounter a lot of suffering in the future if I don't, right? To understand the law of cause and effect. Then with bodhicitta, to understand that we actually owe it to others, that we guide them out of samsara, and it's a very meaningful task to do. I mean, what more noble and what more meaningful can you think of than, leading all beings out of suffering? So then, if you come with the argument, oh, but it will take a long time, oh, it is so difficult, then we need this 7th chapter that we're looking at for enthusiasm, so that we're not losing it. Yeah. Okay, so do you have anything to say about this, or are you also tired? Are you also quiet? Yeah. Okay, so shall we? Yeah, Elisheva? Mm-hmm.
I want to ask something. When I did it, I wasn't sure that what I'm feeling is the me, because remember make me feel like I'm remembering. So what can you say about it?
Of course, there is an I that remembers. Your conventional I remembers.
It's like concentrated on me, no?
No, I mean, this is not. I said concentrate at the body. You focus on the body that is sitting.
Yeah, because my mind is there, so I said remember, and then I felt like I'm remembering.
Elisheva, what you do when you use words, body is sitting, body is sitting, body is sitting, not remember.
Okay, sorry. But it was good. I felt good. Not because I felt myself. I felt like it helped me to concentrate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to say, I mean, it's like, of course you can do whatever you want to do in your meditation, but also one trains some discipline, one decides what one wants to do and you stick to it. Even it doesn't have to feel good. This is the thing. Please let go of that idea that meditation has to feel good. Meditation is for the sake of knowing what brings suffering and what brings happiness, and not short term, but long term. Because otherwise you can smoke a joint, It
was by mistake. I didn't understand what you asked to do, so it was by mistake, but it wasn't like a good feeling, like relaxation, but it helps to concentrate very good, because I wasn't anywhere else. All the time I was focusing, I was remember, and then I was on the inhale and exhale. That's what I did. Remember to inhale and exhale. Remember to just to be with your inhale and exhale. So
that can be your object of meditation, of course. That's the easiest. It's easy to find, but even easier to find is body is sitting. It's there because it's right there. But anyway, there's so many ways to meditate. So again, because if you never have much results, it's not very satisfying also. If we just try and try and try, nothing ever changes. It's not really satisfying. Then of course, you can come with this argument, oh, but I shouldn't be attached to this and that. Yeah. I mean, that's also true, but it's like, it's a fact. It's not satisfying if you don't make any progress and you just try, and then you get fed up with it and then you go to something else. I mean, it's normal. But it's like, you see, with shamatha, with a concentrated mind, in the beginning, our mind is like water that you pour on the ground that goes a little bit down, okay? So it goes down, but it goes left, right, everywhere. It goes where it's easiest to go. But if you keep pouring it always in the same spot, it starts to make a channel. And you keep pouring it into this channel, which is either your breath or the body posture or whatever. You keep pouring it there, the channel will become deeper and deeper and deeper. And then all of a sudden it goes by itself. You don't have to remember anymore. You know, you sit down, and maybe that's what happened with you now, because you do breathing meditation, then the mind automatically goes there. You know, it's also interesting to see that we already have a certain level of realizations that you sit down and automatically the mind goes where it usually goes in your meditation. So that's having started to create a channel already. Yeah. And then, but if you always go where the mind wants to go, where it's easiest to go, then you dig many channels, and these channels are not very deep. And if we want to understand emptiness, you know, it's like you have to have a quiet mind, otherwise it's not possible. We can understand it in the head, which is a good way, but it's not doing the trick. Kind of, it's not liberating us. We really have to have a direct experience of it, and that's not easy. That is really not easy. And developing shamatha is very, very difficult. And it only comes through training. It's like same with everything else that is difficult. Playing the piano, learning how to dance, you know, doing anything, skills. It's a skill. And we have been trained not to be concentrated, but to just allow the mind to go everywhere where it wants to go, like water. You know, the water goes where it's easiest to go. But we are not water. We have what to say? We have aspiration. So the more we know why we meditate long term, in order to understand emptiness, in order to develop compassion, then the more we will have energy to bring the mind back. You know, if we just say, well, you know, I want to be peaceful in my meditation, well, then you let the mind go wherever it wants to go, you know, where there's no resistance. And at the end, of course, you know, when you do Mahamudra, then of course you totally open the mind and you have this choiceless awareness. But, you know, it sounds great, you know, it says, what does it say? Just let the mind rest in its natural state and it will realize its own nature. Ooh, that sounds fantastic. But whenever is our mind in its natural state? You know, a natural state would be totally spacious, and you only experience what you experience without judging, without having an opinion about it. But when are we in a state like this? You know, and Elisheva, when you say, you know, not to have thoughts, of course, that in a way that is the final goal. But we do have thoughts at the moment. We cannot will these thoughts to stop. Then otherwise, it's like, again, when we take water, you have a tap that drips. So instead of closing it here, you know, you hold the hand under where the tap drips, and maybe it works for a while, but then it goes, yeah, and it just explodes.
What I meant was that thoughts are there already.
Yeah, of course.
So just look and try not to make new thoughts. Just look what is going on there and not to make any manipulation on this. That was what I meant.
Okay, good. Well, it's good that we discuss it, so then you can explain to me when I don't understand properly. Okay, so I want to, if it's okay with you, we finish with this arrogance thing, where we look at these antidotes. You know, I said we will look at antidotes, how to use. And so for unhelpful emotions, or maybe we stop it. When I say unhelpful emotions or negative emotions, I told you to make a list. What is on your list? You know, what do we have to be careful about? We need to know what we have to be careful about. And we need to, not just in the head, anger, attachment, blah, 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 and all this. We need to know how he feels. And these emotions, you have them in the body. You know, they're not in the head. Very often we try to dissolve an emotion in the head, like depression, fear, panic. You try to dissolve it here. It's not here. It is here. So this is where you have to deal with it. Of course, you know, you can deal with negative emotions intellectually when they're not there. So then you can train you can have some tools ready to work with it. And then you can apply them when the negative emotions come. But if the negative emotions are there and you're not familiar with these tools, they don't come automatically. I mean, you won't find. And then when you start to think and all this, it's not really going to help. But being aware of your body, how it feels when there is an unhelpful emotion, then that you already make the step out of this emotion, or mental factors, maybe a better word. So what list did you come up with? I mean, you heard this so many times. What goes into the category of non-virtuous, destructive, afflictions, what else to use it? Delusions, pleasure in Sanskrit. Anybody? Just go ahead. We're not so many people, so you can just open your microphone and say.
I would like to share a thought, a feeling, and something that I see in myself often, and which is not what we would say the classical negative emotions like anger or arrogance or etc. But something that we categorize, even it's just the name of the class that we're taking with you, enthusiasm, being over enthusiastic, and meaning that you feel something, you are happy about it, but you're kind of taking one step too far. And that brings about...
Sorry, I have to stop you. How can you be too far in developing bodhicitta?
No, I'm not talking about enthusiasm, about... I'm talking about classical enthusiasm.
But this is, this is
enthusiasm.
Is about bodhicitta. This, what he talks about. Do you remember? We talked about it at the beginning of this chapter. What does he mean? He means being joyful in doing virtuous things, being joyful in creating causes for your own enlightenment. It's not about being joyful about doing worldly stuff. Sorry for cutting you, but I think I really had to.
Okay.
So when you talk about your over-enthusiasm about what?
Oh, I'm not about bodhicitta, not about what we're learning, but about daily behavior. So there's something that something that you're discussing with someone or etc., and then you get carried on. And these are not negative feelings in the classical sense, but sometimes then you get to a point that your thoughts are not in relation to the thing itself, and they're doing the classical thing. They are exaggerating the situation in a positive sense, but then this can feed back into something that makes you feel not good or give a wrong message.
Okay. So, but maybe we have to remind ourselves, what we're talking about here. When I said, why are negative emotions called negative or destructive? What are they destroying?
This is destroying, I would say, in the general sense, the peace of mind. This is destroying the calmness. This is destroying the focus.
Yeah. No, they're called destructive emotions or afflictions or pleasures because one thing, they exaggerate reality or they take something away from reality. The other thing, they take us away from liberation and enlightenment. That's why they're called negative. Not even because they create suffering, but because they make obstacles to liberation and enlightenment. This is why they're called destructive. You know, like, for example, what is called a constructive mental factor is shame and embarrassment. Can you imagine? Feels really bad to be ashamed and embarrassed. But it makes us change our behavior when we behave unethically. And it's all about ethics. It's all about, you know, it's all about creating the causes for enlightenment. It's not about just functioning as a good human being. It goes much, much further than that.
Karma also, including including karma.
What do you mean, including karma?
That it affects also your karma. Negative.
But also your positive, also the constructive. Everything. You know, we're creating habits, tendencies, consequences for the future the whole day with our body, speech, and mind. So then we need to know what we want. Do we want to be liberated and fully awakened or not? Or do we just want to be kind of a kind human being, which is a great thing. I'm not denying that it's a good thing. But we do have, every being has this wish for lasting happiness. So being a decent, good human being, I mean, we're still stuck with that wish for lasting happiness, which we can't fulfill because there's still a lot of dissatisfaction. Okay?
Anila, thank you for reminding shame and embarrassment, because after such thoughts that I just mentioned, often comes shame and embarrassment. Even if it's only personal, you know, if it's only a personal thing, the fact that I felt this way and behaved this and saw this way in terms of what I mentioned, this carrying over, and then when I perceive it, then I feel embarrassed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not pleasant to feel embarrassed, but it shows us that we did something that was not according to our values or what we want, or according to where we want to go. It's not creating the causes to where we want to go. But again, you know, you can totally exaggerate shame and embarrassment also. Actually, we changed these two words because they're too heavy. You know, they have too much wrong meaning in it. So we changed it to, I think, shame, we changed it to integrity, and embarrassment, we changed it to consideration for others. Because that's what it is. You know, when you look at the definition of these two words, what they are, because these are mental factors that make us do something. So when you are ashamed, you are, you know, you would even be ashamed having done it, even when you're alone. You know, there's certain things that, like, for example, if I would kill something, I would feel really ashamed, even if nobody saw me, right? I would feel bad about it. And embarrassment is like something that I do when I'm alone, but I wouldn't do when other people are present. So this is why we talked about integrity, meaning I have values, I know my values, and I train. I'm just talking about training. I'm not able to live my values completely, wholly, sorry, you know, but I have these values and I want to be able to live them. And this is why I do spiritual practice. Because I feel, somebody said about it feels good, because I feel good when I can live my values spontaneously without having to compare with somebody else, without somebody needing to be there to see me, without knowing what I did and all this. That feels free. You see, also what we want to attain is freedom. Freedom from being under the control of our emotions that prevent us from living these values. Okay? So why when you study Buddhism and you read this the 6 root delusions, then how many are there? 21 or 22 second delusions, and the 3 mental poisons, the main ones, or the 5 poisons. So then we learn this. Actually, we learn it. We learn the definition, and then we learn to recognize them when they are operating. And I do trust the Buddha that, you know, when these destructive emotions are there, then I'm, as Ariella was saying, then I'm creating imprints or karma, if you want to call it like this, that will not lead me to where I want to go. If they are constructive, there's 11 of them. If they are constructive, you know, then they will lead me to liberation and full awakening. And this is what I want. Yeah. But then, of course, you know, if you discuss with a psychologist, then they come with all kinds of different opinions. And it's not, you know, not as black and white as that. But it's the main thing is that we notice when something that one calls klesha is coming up. And this is what the mindfulness is for. So we notice it, and then we can apply antidotes. And the best antidote is already noticing it. The same way as when you notice a tension in your body, the body relaxes. Have you noticed that? You know, you can sit there and you think you're relaxed. And then you go a bit deeper and you look. For example, me, my face. You know, I always feel when I'm not there consciously, and then then I go back to the face, I feel there is subtle tensions in the face, eyes and here. Yeah. But when we're not looking, we don't notice them, but they're still there. And it's the same for negative states of mind. If we're not looking, we even think it's something good, as Edouard was saying with being over enthusiastic. You know, also the word, you know, it's called enthusiasm. It can also be called perseverance, by the way, that chapter, or diligence, or joyful effort, okay? And the effort is like, the joy is in doing virtuous things. The joy is in doing things that lead us to liberation and enlightenment. And this is why I cut you, you know, this is why I cut you with what you're saying, is that is what we have to be enthusiastic for. To put the teachings that we hear into practice, to listen to the teachings, to think about them in a way, does that appeal to me? You know, do I find this logic? Do I want to transform in that direction? If it's no, you have all the rights and all the freedom not to do it. If it is yes, then you need to sit down and meditate on it. We have to train it. We have to internalize the whole thing. This is how we proceed. Listening, reflecting, meditating. And then the mind will transform. So these 3 steps are very necessary. But then, you know, again, we try to have a nice, fulfilled life. So that's great. But then sometimes when we hear things in this text, we forget that this is, as I said, it's not about just being a nice, ordinary human being. It's about becoming enlightened. It's about bodhicitta. This is why it's called a guide for a bodhisattva, for the ways of the bodhisattva. So those are suggestions. If you have decided that you want to develop bodhicitta, if you find bodhicitta a good thing, wanting to train the mind to be of benefit to all sentient beings, then that's a perfect day. If you have decided, oh, no, I just want to have a comfortable life, I'm not sure if that takes this suit. Some things, yes, especially when it's about patience, but other things are far too difficult to do. What do you think? Ones who are familiar with. Huh? Sorry, did I frighten you? Don't you dare to say anything anymore. Also, if you study this text, you know, you have to bring in a lot of humor because otherwise it's too heavy, this whole thing. And not to be afraid to fail, you know, not to go, oh, no, this is what the chapter is all about. So that we're not constantly afraid, like, oh, no, this is too difficult for me. Oh, no, I can't do that. And where we are in this section is about, if you have healthy self-confidence, you cannot be arrogant. If you're arrogant, you don't have any self-confidence. Yeah, these 2 things kind of exclude each other. When you have healthy self-confidence, you see your shortcomings, you see where you stand, you see your qualities without having to kind of proclaim to the whole world what your qualities are. And you become already now quite a free person. If you're arrogant, you need witnesses that, you know, they see how wonderful you are. You hide your mistakes that you're making. You're faking that you have qualities that you don't have. You know that you don't have these qualities. And then you need to, you need so much strength and energy just to keep up that image of yourself that you know, because you're so afraid that somebody finds out what what your mistakes are, or what your faults are, or what your shortcomings are. And with time, you don't even want to see them yourself anymore. You know people like this? I do. Me sometimes. Huh?
But I think that some of the features you talked about can be also described as lack of confidence rather than arrogance.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
with the words is fine. If you prefer lack of confidence, is fine.
no, I think there is a difference between arrogance and lack of confidence. Arrogant people, they are so afraid of their shortcomings, they hide them so much that they even don't recognize that they have them anymore, and they can also do unethical things to hide or to make themselves look better.
Definitely, yeah. And lack of confidence is, arrogance and lack of confidence doesn't come at the same moment, but it goes together.
I agree, but there are people who lack confidence but are not arrogant.
Okay. Well, do you remember, were you there when we looked at the 7 kinds of pride?
Maybe, yes, I think so.
Yeah, so, there's different kinds of arrogance. It's not just one thing. It's like, we were talking about, feeling competition with others, or feeling having absolutely no qualities. That's also sort of arrogant. I'm the lowest of all. There's nobody worse than I am. Gosh, we haven't even looked at the text yet, but let's go through the antidotes before we have to finish the class, okay? So Lundrup goes always, with all the negative emotions, he goes into 5 steps. Yeah. So the first one is pause, then to apply antidotes, then change perspective, release it into its nature, which is emptiness, and take it as a path. So these are the 5 ways of dealing with negative emotions. And it's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because you cannot release it into its nature if you haven't applied antidote. You cannot apply antidotes when you haven't paused before. Yeah. And it's very difficult with the antidotes, and then you can change perspective. And taking it as a path, actually, that might be a bit strange to you. Because we need to train, right? We need to train. So we need to have these negative emotions so we can train. We become very strong at recognizing. So then actually taking it as a path, when you feel that you're quite confident in applying antidotes, in this case here is arrogance, you put yourself into positions where your arrogance comes up, so that you can see it and you can then change it. The same goes for jealousy, desire, anger, and okay. So with the pausing, what happens? You pause and you refuse to cooperate with pride. So kind of notice it. You relax the tendency to boast. We do not give in to its temptations, like exaggerating or only saying one part of the story and all this. This is what I do all the time. Leaving things out almost unconsciously. So to be able to do that, first we have to be aware that there is pride in our thoughts and behavior. Very often is very seducing. Our face is beaming with self-confidence and well-being. The conversation flows effortlessly. Have you never had this feeling like, wow, I'm so great when you were talking and it was flowing? Isn't it? Nobody is nodding. So again, I'm the only one.
I am nodding.
Huh? You're nodding, but I can't see you. The camera is off. Okay. This is the moment to check for pride. We stop our exaggeration in the story. You can continue to tell the story, but don't add anything to it. Stop to point out our qualities, a very clear decision to be just normal. Normal in the way to be the norm, to be ordinary, you know, not to be special. This is another thing, you know, every time we catch that thing, but I have to be special, I have to be perfect, I have to succeed and all this. This all goes into, you know, this holding on to this I, me, who needs to be special. So this decision is preceded by an understanding how devastating the effects of pride can become. Pausing gives us the possibility to go into a different direction. We find the joy to be somebody ordinary. It's so relaxing, you know. I tell you, the last 5 months I had, and I talked to Leora today, where she also said with the COVID, you know, you don't have to go out. You don't have any responsibility. You don't have to prove that you can bear it, you know, you can do it. Oh man, this is so, yeah, to be ordinary. So in order to work with pride, we have to notice when we get artificial. We add in order to show others how wonderful we are. We have to see that. We play a role. So we relax into that and let the mask fall. Behind that are very often feelings of loneliness, insecurity, fear, neediness, and at all costs, others should not notice our vulnerability or weakness. We can learn to live with these very common feelings without making a big deal out of it. Then we can meet people in an open and honest way. Superman and Superwoman are fiction. We become normal human beings, and it is now that we can also develop passion and experience joy, and especially lightness. You know, this kind of being at ease, being very light, whatever it is. So we have moments like this. So then we should, you know, when we have moments like this, we know them from experience. So it's good to think, wow, this is good. This, I want to develop this further. This is not coming with exaggeration. It's not coming with arrogance. So basically, proud people are quite stiff, even if they are great animators and make everybody laugh. Okay, so then the second one is use helpful antidotes. Here we welcome everything that will help us to get into a compassionate, sensitive being. So for example, take refuge, to connect with and put ourselves under the guidance of the awakened ones. We admit that we need help. Help in terms of, if I want to liberate myself from my unhelpful emotions, I need help. I need instructions. I need inspiration. I need to be guided. So recognizing that is already a step away from pride. That was just my own thing. Then we can do Tonglen. If I recognize that I need help, I can see that others do too. Then an open connection can be created coming from our open heart. It's not about us. When we do Tonglen, it's not about you. Tonglen is never practiced out of pride. It develops its strengths in modesty. In Tonglen, I am not the great Bodhisattva who liberates all beings from their suffering, human with all his problems and weaknesses, that recognizes the others, that others go through the same. He's now ready to share his problems and difficulties and to support others with love. More important than applying methods is to see hidden pride. This was your last, this was the homework. It hides behind artificial humility, low self-esteem, fear of failure, emotionally protecting and very self-centered attitude that always accompanies pride. The internet connection is going a bit funny. Can you still hear me? Okay. We
Yes.
train in serving others to act in a kind way, giving them small gifts. We learn to value others in a deep way. Then a good antidote, awareness of our own shortcomings. But for that, we need some healthy self-confidence to see that we have no reason to be proud and all our so-called good qualities are totally worldly. We are not able to liberate ourselves, forget about others. How many of our qualities help us in a crisis, getting older, sickness, pandemic, fear, loneliness, having relationship problems? These are worldly kind of what, what Edua was talking about, status, Rich people can become, panicky, depressed, whatever, sick. Very intelligent people can be very afraid. Very beautiful people can be very afraid or, or get depressed and lonely and all. So real qualities are not of our own making, but an expression of the nature of your mind and also learned from others or genetically inherited from our parents. When we feel that pride is coming up, because we know something or we're very intelligent, maybe we're very intelligent because our parents gave us these genes. Who knows, And then you have great ability to learn very quickly and to have a good memories. Nothing to be proud about. Or we have learned skill from others. And when it's goodness and compassion and a good heart, then it's just everybody has it. Every nature of the mind, every natural mind has an open heart. It also helps to see that we are replaceable. What will our friends remember when we are gone or dead? Our achievements or our humanness? This is a good thing that we ask ourselves, especially when we have low self-esteem, that, we're not as good as the best one in playing the piano or in figuring out problems on the internet or with the computer or, cooking or whatever. It's very good. Will that be remembered? Is that really so important? So if the body is the source for pride, good to contemplate its nature and to see how the attractiveness will fall apart. We just talked with Leora today how much we have aged we two, because she was looking at some pictures from 20 years ago. So we can be shocked, or we can still say, oh, I looked quite okay 20 years ago. Now I'm old and ugly, but that's okay. So we will develop the courage to show our fears and weaknesses. We admit to ourselves our longing to be loved and appreciated, to see how we depend on others. Learn how to accept criticism, do not avoid difficult situations anymore, and develop a healthy self-worth, trusting our qualities that are actually there. We become flexible in our roles. Sometimes we are on the top, sometimes below or at the bottom, meaning you can lead or you can serve. You can do both, whatever is needed at that moment. So joy develops to see others more important than ourselves, to let them to be the center of attention, and we experience a feeling of us instead of me and them, like this separation. What will be helpful to see the qualities in our parents, teachers, relatives, friends, co-workers, with putting emphasis on the equanimity of us all concerning Buddha nature. Specific Buddhist practices for pride: patience, refuge, traces, bodhicitta, contemplations, tonglen, Guru Yoga, Cho. Cho is like Cho is a practice where you kind of, you separate in your meditation, of course, where you separate your consciousness from the body, and then you cut up the body and you offer it to anybody who would like to. That's kind of, it's to cut the attachment to the body. But you can also become very proud and very arrogant of being able to be a good Cho practitioner, because you need to be quite skillful. It has a big drum and a bell, and the melodies can be quite difficult to learn. And it's, it goes very deep when somebody hears Cho, even you don't know it, everybody feels quite touched. It's very beautiful. Yeah, it can also be a source of arrogance, but if you do it properly, then of course it will destroy your arrogance. So actually, all Dharma practice done in an honest way leads to the dissolution. So then, so here's exchanging perspective. Okay, so this one, what we read until now was antidote. And so now this one is exchanging proud view into experience of equanimity. We continue to see all beings are equally important and valuable. So the status, Edouard goes, goes lost. Because status we have, I have white skin. Why? Because my parents have white skin. So there's nothing to be proud about. So all want happiness, nobody wants to. Our mind functions in the same way, and so do our body. We have the same emotions, the same problems and challenges, joys with small differences that come from cultures and cultures. So we do not need to deny our qualities, but we put them at the service of others. When you are, it's good to feel good about yourself. It's good to see the qualities that you have. And then you think, wow, like this, I can benefit others. Yeah. And not because you want to be recognized as a wonderful being, but just for the sake of being of benefit to others. And you you see that because I can be of benefit to others, I can create the positive karma or energy that I need instead of air, in terms of attaining liberation and enlightenment. So we need others that we need to serve in order to attain enlightenment. So we think, without making too much fuss to contribute to the well-being of a good remedy for pride. But pay attention. It can creep in again through the back door. I'm not here to become the most compassionate savior of the world, but just to give my best in all simplicity. As we said, with the 3 P's, be simple. So pride cannot be dissolved just by changing behavior, but it is the first step, and it is necessary. Again and again, we call upon the spirit of serving, devotion, and compassion, and distance ourselves from our proud. Change will start to happen when we do not take ourselves so seriously anymore, and we can laugh about our shortcomings and mistakes. We become more and more natural, and we can connect with others in a simple way. What better gift can you make? So thoughts of pride can arise by helping a Dharma group, thinking, wow, they are really lucky to have me. Those who are working in Dharma groups, if you have never had this thought, I really admire you, because I have had this thought many times. So if we think like this, we totally forget how much guidance we have received from many people in order to be where we are. Always have to remember, all the Dharma knowledge does not come from me, it comes from my gurus. So if we become aware how much support and care we got, then gratitude is up, then a natural wish to share arises, understanding how dependent we are on people and nature. Nature like the environment. Another way would be to develop divine pride. So this is tantric practice, right? Based on the basic qualities of the mind, totally free of any clinging to a seeming self-existence. This Vajra pride is indestructible and not exposed to any emotional fluctuation. There is no faltering and hesitation. It is total self-confidence, free from any belief in an autonomous, self-existent, permanent separate I, an unshakable confidence in our natural self, a dimension that is the same for all of us, without a center, possessor, free, flowing, being without a middle. That is why there is no fear. The center, if you want to call it like that, is bodhicitta without any splitting of the reality into I and other. It expresses itself in spontaneous action for the benefit of the whole situation. And this is thinking about emptiness, so liberating pride into its true nature. Look deep into arrogance, directly seeing the proud I. How to look into an emotion. So we need mindfulness to be aware of the emotion, in this case, arrogance. In his experience of arrogance, there seems to be a center. where the emotion seems to be. What Elisheva was saying, like there's an I that remembers, me that remembers. And that feels very compact, solid, and concrete. Exactly into that I, you have to look. This feeling could be localized in the body, heart, head, belly, or it seems to be in a mental space or in the center of the thought, are not localized. We just go into where we feel it the most, and then we see what happens. All you have to do. Don't expect anything, just see what happens. And then taking pride as a past, this is the last step in order to train further, when it comes up. This is possible when pride has been liberated into its nature. From then on, we can on purpose manipulate ourselves into situations where arrogance gets stimulated, where a lot of people can see my skills or when my shortcomings are totally not noticeable. The moment arrogance arises, we look deep into it. This is probably something that we will have to do for the rest of our lives. It will not help to avoid situations where we are at our best and our arrogance gets nourished. Like this, arrogance will never be dissolved. We have to work with it. It is better to work directly with it than to avoid it, and that goes for all negative emotions. We let arrogance consciously arise in order to every time see it, its empty, dreamlike nature, where the self-concern dissolves. The more moments of arrogance, the better we get at it. What takes the breeding ground away is to see the nature of the subject, the I that is proud. When we see that this I does not really exist, and that this thinker, this observer is empty, meaning does not have an essence that could be called I, then we know that all the qualities that pride does identify with does not belong to anybody. They are spontaneously there and active and do not have an essence either. This realization will cut the root of pride. Pride is very difficult to dissolve and might be active until up to the 8th Bodhisattva level. This is why we should not neglect. We have to be careful not to become dogmatic, close-minded, and to think that we belong to an elite that owns all the wisdom. If we do that, then the practice is mixed with arrogance and jealousy and has nothing to do with Dharma. To see this, one has to become aware of one's own pride and with openness and awareness get at it. This is the real discipline by which our practice gets deeper day by day. If we do not notice our arrogance, we get more and more tense and get angry very easily when in contact with others. This anger can even be directed against the teacher or the practice. Okay, so you see, these are suggestions how to work with it. Now, don't think tomorrow I have to be able to do all this. This is impossible. Yeah, so we go step by step, right? I'm not able to do this, but I find this perfect instructions. Then, I forget again, and then I read it again, and then I do again, and then get it again, and then, it's like, this is how it is. So that's why we call the Buddhist path training. It's spiritual training our mind. So we don't have to get all dogmatic and tense and, I have to be good. Yet we have to see that we're not a good person, and we have to admit it. We are proud and jealous and frightened and, attached and angry. This is why we're in samsara. It's okay, everybody else. And there is a remedy. Okay? So homework, what do you want to do, homework? Nourishing your self-confidence, okay? How can you try to find ways and means with maybe some of these antidotes. Maybe I put it in the chat and then you can download the whole text if you want. Yeah.
Yes, please do this.
Okay. Yeah, I know you've been waiting for this, Tina, didn't you?
Yes, I wanted to say we were waiting for it.
Here it is. Coming. There you go. So you can download it. I will also send it to Ariella because she is my boss in this here. And so if you were not able to download it or whatever, you can send an email to her or to the Dharma friends. They will forward it to Ariella and she will send it to you or to others on the YouTube now, because on the YouTube you can't get it. So I will send it to you, Ariella, right now, right when we. Okay. So homework is to, how can I nourish my self-confidence without needing anybody to see my quality? With what kind of thoughts? You think is good exercise, good homework? So whenever you feel bad about yourself, check, what's going on also. Then nourish your self-confidence. Just to give you a hint. Self-confidence doesn't need anybody to compare with. You don't feel good because somebody else is not so good. You see, arrogance and pride always needs comparing. Also low self-esteem, by the way. Yeah. If it's healthy self-confidence, you just know you have qualities and that's it. And you're happy about them. And as it says in the text, you put them, you think, oh, great, I can put them at the service of others. How wonderful that I have these qualities. Usually it stops where, oh, I'm so great. Oh, I have these qualities. Yeah, and then you go, okay, what do I want to do with these qualities? I want others to benefit. And then you check what's happening. Then you look how you feel and what is happening. Like, please write it down so then we can discuss it. Because either you forget the homework or you have forgotten that you did the homework and then you don't know anything.
So
okay?
If I understood you, you want us to actually nourish our self-confidence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And write it down.
And write down what it did to you, some effect that it had, so that we can share.
Okay.
Anila, wouldn't or isn't the first step for that is one, of course, I think we all know things that we are, we're good at. We have some qualities that we have. Maybe the first step would be to be thankful for that. Wow, I can do this. I think so. What a great chance I have to be able to do it.
When you look at the Lamrim, the precious human rebirth, this would be self-confidence, going like, I have all the possibilities to attain full awakening. For example, this goes in that direction. We're so fortunate. And then to recognize also all these qualities, they come from others. They're not coming from me, because arrogance is usually I am so fantastic. Sometimes it's good to say, oh, I learned this from this and this person. How wonderful. When you read something in the internet, it becomes your knowledge. Yeah. But it's the knowledge of somebody else. Yeah. But this is to see that kind of, or when you read something, maybe a thought about your first teacher and to say thank you. It's thanks to this person who was so patient with me that I'm able to read. For example, we never think like it. I can read as if I was born being able to read. This is how. But yeah, you're right. This kind to be happy about the qualities that we have. Yeah. Anyway, just try, and then if we discuss it, then we can see that it can go in all kinds of directions. I tell you, arrogance is the most difficult negative emotion to work with because it has so many faces. Anger is quite clear-cut. It's like the wish to harm. Desire is quite clear-cut, wanting to possess something. Jealousy is quite clear-cut, also kind of, not being happy when somebody else has. Arrogance is very, very difficult to spot. It's very subtle. It can be, of course, can also be very, very gross. But it's so difficult. And it's one of the biggest hindrances for learning something and for attaining enlightenment, because it really grasps onto this I am. Is it more or less clear what you were supposed to do? And then again, you know, it's just a suggestion. You don't want to do it, it's fine. I'm not, you don't have to. You find it helpful, then you do. Okay? I mean, this is what Shantideva wants us to do with his text, to put it into practice, you know, to train these things with these thoughts, with these words, to maybe learn some of the verses by heart when you find them very helpful, like this verse 30 in this text, where it says, how can you, when you feel that you're being depressed, when it says, how can you be depressed when you're riding on the horse of Bodhicitta? It's so wonderful. And when it says, with Bodhicitta, you go from joy to joy. Yeah? Or the verse, you know, one of my favorite verses, I think it's in the 2nd chapter, where it says, like a blind man finding a diamond in a heap of rubbish, to an idiot like me, an interest in developing bodhicitta has arisen. It's a miracle, you know. When I look at my life before I met the Dharma, I mean, it's a miracle that all of a sudden I showed interest to develop these things. And I was 41 or something, 41, like a miracle. Before I was absolutely not interested. I was interested in having fun and pleasure, you know. So like this, so I like that verse. And to see, you know, it's almost like a miracle. So take this miracle and do something with it. Don't just sit there and say, oh, miracle, wonderful. Not like that, you know. To really use it, to use these qualities, to use that interest at the moment. I don't know what will be tomorrow or next week or whatever. Will the interest still be there? I have no clue. There's no guarantee. Okay, so we dedicate all the positive energy that we have generated by looking at arrogance and discussing these things, so that our interest in developing bodhicitta, like the wish to attain full awakening in order to guide and lead all sentient beings who want to be guided there to that state as well, you know, may that attitude never vanish. And whatever has been developed in terms of bodhicitta, may it grow until it's blooming totally fully into all of us becoming Buddha. May that happen very, very quickly. Then we definitely have to dedicate for peace and dialogue between the Ukrainians and the Russians. We dedicate, it might not happen, but it's much better to dedicate than just to say, but this is not going to. We don't know. We don't know. But whatever positive energy we have created, we give away to these people who have power, to these people who can make decisions, and especially not to the people who suffer, but not just to the people who suffer. We have to dedicate for the happiness of the victims and the aggressors. Please, this is what His Holiness is saying. You know, whoever is the victim today was the aggressor of yesterday. Whoever is the aggressor of today will at one point be the victim. This is how karma. Don't forget. But it doesn't mean that the victim deserves to be the victim. It doesn't mean we shouldn't stop the aggressor if we can stop. But we can stop our own aggression by being angry at them and thinking, wow, this is what happens when power comes together with a confused mind. Then a lot of suffering. May the war between Ukraine and Russia and all armed conflict, may it finish very, very. And then also for Venerable Punsok and his mom Dahlia, so that they find, especially Punsok finds the very right conditions, if possible, to recover fully, and in whatever way it goes, may it goes as smoothly and with the least suffering. Mental and great. Thank you very much. So I see you in a week. I think I will in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. I can't remember. I will be next Monday. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good week. Take care.
You and welcome to Israel.
Yeah, thank you very much. I like it very much. I don't know why, but I do like it. I like it being here. So, and for me, it's enough, you know. I don't need to know why. It's enough to just feel comfortable in this country. Okay. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Anila.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good
everybody.
night.
Bye
Good
bye.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you
לילה
very
לכולם,
much.
לילה טוב.
לילה טוב.
הרבה אנשים